Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. Blake Baker, first-year defensive coordinator for your Fighting Tigers of LSU. Not his first time at LSU, but first time as a defensive coordinator. Has had his guys in spring camp now for about a month. And he had an opportunity earlier today to speak with the media, and he had a few interesting things to say. One of the things he had to say was about Harold Perkins, but the fire alarm went off in the middle of it, so we're going to leave that one alone. I think you've got a pretty good feel for how things are going with Harold Perkins, but I first want to start with Blake Baker and his decision to leave what was a really, really good job. He was at Missouri. They went 10-2 this year, won a bowl game. They're going to be a top 10 team preseason. He was making a heck of a living. Why come back to Baton Rouge?
We were really, really excited. We really did enjoy our time in Columbia, and Coach Drinkwitz was absolutely phenomenal, and we're still really close, which made it a tougher decision, to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, the opportunity to be close to home, be close to family. My kids right now are at their grandma's. They're on spring break. They're at their grandma's in Mandeville right now for the week. So things like that you just can't take for granted when you get the opportunity in this profession, especially at a place like LSU. This to me has always been one of those dream jobs. When I first got into coaching, actually, even before I got into coaching, I've always dreamed of being the defensive coordinator here. And so when the opportunity rose, I kind of took everything and we sat down as a family and thought it was the best decision for our family, but very, very happy to be back.
The only thing that really matters is that they stop people and win games. We know that. That's the only thing that matters. And that's going to be the bottom line here for Blake Baker, and we'll see how that shakes out. But I think sometimes it's cool to shed a light on something that's a little bit different. And for Blake Baker to say, we had a great spot there in Columbia, but we came back. And you could say, if you're the fan, well, obviously you're going to leave Missouri to come to LSU, where they win Heisman trophies and national championships and compete for conference championships. And you're going to leave Missouri for LSU. And that may be the case, too. If Blake Baker's in-laws lived just outside of Columbia, Missouri, he may still have taken the job at LSU. But I think it's cool to think that a guy comes here. We know that his wife played sports here and that her family lives there on the North Shore, and for his kids to be able to go to their grandparents, that's not something that happens a lot for coaches. They're all over the country all the time. And so I thought that was a cool little anecdote and something that shows that he's really invested in being here. This is a place that his family really wants to be. And I think it's good to have that as a base. Now you got to go stop people. And we know that LSU didn't stop anybody last year. So the question is, how are you going to do that? Well, in spring, you can't necessarily get everything fixed. But what you can do is lay the groundwork, move some pieces around. We know Harold Perkins has moved from kind of edge rushing to more inside. We know that Major Burns has moved from safety, and he's playing more of that star role. There have been some personnel and alignment adjustments that we know of here in the spring, but I think what you can more so judge is like how much the guys really trust and how much they buy in to what Blake Baker is teaching.
I think our guys they've bought in. I think they're learning different techniques, and some things it's taken some guys a little bit longer to adjust maybe, but there hadn't been a guy really spitting the bit or bucking it the way that we're coaching. I think they're all in on what we're trying to do, so it's been really, really cool to see it this far.
It's clear to me that they were not bought in at the end of last year because you saw the reaction on social media when Matt House and the rest of the guys on that defensive staff were ushered out the door. It was jarring to me personally to see that level of reaction, and was on the negative side, to a coach. And so to have a new guy come in and feel like immediately guys are buying in, that's a good thing. Now, again, y'all know, if you've listened to me for 5 years here on this radio station, 10 years on this radio station, as I've had the show here for 3 years, I know that this is optimism time, and August is even more optimism time. And so to be talking about buying in and generalities like that, it's all warm and fuzzy, and I get it. But it's a step toward where they're trying to go. Now, the question is not only with the players and buying in, but you also realize that there's a whole new staff that's brought in to coach this. And Blake Baker is part of it, and Corey Raymond is part of it. And you brought in Bo Davis, and there's a whole new group of guys trying to get everybody on the same page defensively. And so Baker was asked, how's the new staff working together?
It's kind of interesting when Coach Kelly and I got together and started talking about names that we wanted to hire. To be honest with you, I've been blessed. I've worked with every single one of these guys at previous stops. So I kind of knew how each guy was individually. But to put them all together, I knew what kind of person they are, so I knew that they would gel pretty quickly. And I think we have really good staff camaraderie. I think that's really important as well because the kids see how you interact with each other. So I think it's been really, really smooth as far as the transition of us all getting together at the same time.
It's a really, really high-level staff in terms of name recognition. I think a lot of people know Bo Davis in the college football world. Like, let's be real. Do you know who the running backs coach is at Alabama? Maybe you do. I don't. Do you know who the offensive line coach is at Auburn? Like, I don't. Position coaches are not necessarily household names in the college football world, but I think a lot of people know Bo Davis. I know a lot of people know Corey Raymond. Like, these are guys that people are aware of in this part of the country and at the highest level in college football. And it's just a staff that should give you as an LSU fan like a lot of confidence that they're going to make steps to get this corrected. I don't pretend that they're going to have this thing humming as a top 5 defense nationally in the fall. If you think that, I'm all for your confidence, and that's awesome. I think you may be a little misguided, but I'm not telling you how to think. It was so bad last year, and they got so far to go that I think they're going to work in that direction and get it done, but it's just going to take a little bit of time. One thing that is synonymous with Blake Baker, it's something that we've heard a lot about since his hire, is that this defense is going to be far more aggressive than what you saw in the past with Matt House, where apparently things were a little more reactionary. So Baker spoke to the aggressive nature of his defenses.
I think the style of defense we play helps, but I also think really just trying to allow our kids to play free. There's a lot of opportunities to make plays within the scheme. And so just small things as far as, again, when I say style of play, we want to be a vertical one-gap defense where we're creating havoc in the backfield. But I think keeping it simple for our guys and then trying to make it complicated on the offense. And I think the way that we install the defense from a verbiage standpoint, we try to compartmentalize things. I think all those things kind of foster that. But then most importantly to me, it's an attitude, it's a mindset, and it starts with how we take the field every single day. And I've been pleased with our guys. They've really taken to it, as far as what we're trying to do from a culture standpoint.
If you're listening to Jake or T-Bob talk X's and O's in the morning, like, they're going to get deeper into the weeds than I will here. But when I hear Blake Baker say we're going to be a vertical one-gap defense, even I know what that means. That means you've got one job, one gap, one assignment, go. If you're talking about a two-gap, you've got to stand your guy up, and you're responsible for two gaps, and you've got to react to whichever gap they go to. It's a tougher defense to play. It's really effective if it's done well because you can cover more with individual people. But you lessen your responsibility in a one-gap defense. Defensive lineman, you've got that gap, fill that place. Linebacker, you've got that gap, fill that place. And go. Get vertical, get down the field, and make plays in the backfield. LSU's going to give up some yards and give up some points this year. But if you can get vertical and make plays in the backfield that put teams behind the chains, that's how you can stop drives. That's what they've got to be better at this year, even if they're not elite at every position on the field. Now, we know, speaking of gaps and controlling things, that LSU's interior defensive line is really, 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 really light on numbers. But they've got to play well, because if you can't stop at the point of attack, you'll never stop anybody. And Baker talked about the interior defensive line and how that's coming along.
I think they're getting better every day. I think Coach Davis is really doing a nice job with them. And we have some pieces to work with in there. We have some guys that have played some football, some new faces, some guys obviously moved from the offensive line. So I would say it's a work in progress, but I will say that they have shown improvement daily. So that's kind of where we're at.
And that's about what you'd expect to hear. He's not coming out saying, oh, I love these guys. This unit's going to shock some people. Just says, look, it's a work in progress. We got some guys here that have played some football, got some guys that have come over from the offensive line. It's a work in progress. They're getting better every day. That's about all you can expect from this interior group at this point. I get asked a lot over the last month, like, what's the news on spring football? What's the news on spring football? And I'm kind of like, not a ton. Like, nobody that I know of is in a cast. I haven't heard anybody that went to the hospital and needs surgery. But I don't know any, like, storylines that are emerging. The only thing that we kind of heard is, as I mentioned earlier, Harold Perkins is going to play a little more inside. Major Burns is going to come down towards the line of scrimmage and play a little bit of star. Outside of that, Nussmeier's doing well, and running backs are thin, and trying to figure out some things at wide receiver, and they're moving some guys for offensive line and defense. But it's like not any huge storylines that are emerging. But there's one that has kind of showed up today. Practice was open this morning. There were a number of media members that were there, and the reports are that PJ Woodland was running with the first-team defense a little bit. Now, we realize that at cornerback, there are a lot of numbers and a lot of guys that are options, and none that have a spot locked down. Ashton Stamps, Javian Toviano came on as freshman. Zy Alexander coming back from injury. You got a couple of Ohio State transfers coming back from injury. I don't know who's going to be the first three guys out there at cornerback, but there's a lot of competition. PJ Woodland was the best player in the state of Mississippi last year, and they've put him out there, and apparently he's impressed some folks, and Blake Baker spoke to that today.
Competitiveness. PJ Woodland is a competitor. He's feisty. He'll throw it in there. He's physical, and he can run. But more than anything, for a freshman or a high school senior, as you put it, we've thrown him out there with the one-some, thrown him out there against our top receivers, and he competes. And that's where it starts. But he's got the physical tools. So I've been really, really impressed by him. It wasn't easy, I promise you, those first 3 days before spring break, he probably thought, what in the world did I do? Coming here early. But, man, he's been really impressive these last few days.
That's absolutely something to keep an eye on with PJ Woodland kind of making a push in the spring. I'm not going to try to unfairly compare him to an All-American and future first-round draft choice in Will Campbell. But Will Campbell emerged in his first spring on campus. Now, it was like a week in. Brian Kelly was like, that's the left tackle. We're not saying that's the case, but I like hearing that there's a young player that was highly rated out of high school, that LSU signed in, that enrolled early, and is making some push, especially at a position where LSU has got to have some guys step up. It's not about developing depth there. It's about developing frontline guys. I don't know if PJ Woodland can be that on Labor Day weekend, but it's a good start here in the spring. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.